The Italian America Show is sponsored by Full Sponsorship. Cento Fine Foods. Trust your family with our family. The Bianchi Law Group. Dr. K, the Management Professor. The authors of the #1 international best-selling cookbook, Don't Cut the Basil. Dr. Mark D'Annunzio, National 4th Vice President, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. The Grand Lodge of New York. The Grand Lodge of Ohio. The Grand Lodge of Virginia. The Grand Lodge of Maryland. The Grand Lodge of the Northwest, representing Oregon and Washington. Long Shot Productions, get back in the game. ACMT, Excellence in Aerospace Manufacturing. Purchase the new book, The Palm Beach PI, by Italian-American private investigator Frank Chiato, available now where books are sold.
I'm your guest host, author Andrew Cotter. I am joined tonight by my co-host, Barry from Ohio, who is an OSDIA member and a regular contributor to all their cultural activities. We also have in the DC headquarters of the OSDIA, Justin, who's our moderator. Hi, Justin.
Hey, how are you?
A cultural icon of American kitchens, Rocco DiSpirito. Rocco, thanks for joining us.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for having me, Andrew.
Of course, it's a pleasure. Always great to see you. And I love your backdrop there. I'm feeling inadequate here.
My tablecloth jacket? You're talking about
the whole get up here is really inspiring some envy in me.
Yeah, this is an old tablecloth from one of my nonna's backyard parties. Well, she used to staple this to the table.
Oh, really? Looks in pretty good shape, so congratulations on that. Thanks for taking the time to join us tonight. It's an honor to have you with us. And, I wanted to start by not asking you a question per se, but making a comparison, which I think you're going to like. Feel free to let me know if you disagree, but I consider you the Springsteen of American kitchens. You like that one?
I'm embarrassed. I like it.
You're
so
embarrassed.
much.
Let me explain. Yeah. Let me explain. We'll see. Oh, look. What a coincidence.
I signed copy right behind me.
Your signed copy right behind you.
Yeah, love this guy. That's a very generous comparison. I don't deserve it, but I'm happy to take it if you're going to just give it out cheaply.
It's not cheaply. You earned it. Let me explain. My feeling about what makes Springsteen so iconic is not just the depth of his career, but the breadth of it too, right? And the guy's been a figure in American culture for 50 years, right? Now I realize you couldn't be a figure in American culture that long at your age, but you've been a figure in our lives in America culturally for 25 years, right? And your presence in the world of cuisine is not just deep, but it's broad, right? We met you as a restaurant chef, as a star at Union Pacific. Moving on to Rocco's, you were the original primetime reality TV star, right? In the early aughts. You've pivoted from there to TV appearances regularly. I see you on TV, more than anyone else, it seems like to me. Also, you have products. You make your own products. You have clients who you cook for, right? And I think most importantly, and probably most surprising, right, to many people out there, is that you're a prolific cookbook author. Right? You have a dozen cookbooks. They're all
yeah.
It's the DiSpirito library of cookbooks, and even the cookbooks themselves have a range in them that really covers the American canon of cuisine. Right? From the obvious, the cookbooks are set in Italy and traditional foods that you grew up with and we first met you preparing in many ways, right? To the gourmet things you've done, but also to more of late to healthier sort of variations. And I'm curious, right, what inspired, right, this sort of turn towards what one might call healthy eating, though I don't like that term, but to health-based cuisine.
Well, thank you for the incredibly generous setup there. I don't think there's a star I respect and admire more than Springsteen. I'm going to have to work another 30 years at least to earn that. But I do appreciate the comparison that, I've done a lot of things that have interested me, and they've, it started with this book, and this is my latest book, and there are 13 in between. And they're still all about Flavor. The reason I call it my first book Flavor is because a couple of years into Union Pacific, I realized that the work I do with food had one sort of common thread, and it was this focus on flavor and exciting flavors and tension and resolution that comes with, really great flavor combinations, and experimenting with flavors and ingredients is sort of what's always excited me from even my first job in a pizzeria at 12 years old to working for Greg Kuntz at L'Espinasse and in my own restaurant at Union Pacific, and to this day with cookbooks and TV, creating memories with great flavor combinations is what has always inspired me. And it ultimately comes from the work and ingredients. And, I look at onions and I get ideas, I don't just see the drudgery of peeling onions. I see possibilities. And then of course, the interaction with people. The interaction with people was the first thing I felt in the pizzeria on Sutphin Boulevard in Queens. And back then I was just serving sliced pizza and fountain soda, but I realized that interaction with the customer is very magical and full of possibility, and very can expand your life and horizons. And it was for me a view to what life could be as a 12-year-old growing up in a very small community of Jamaica, Queens. Even though Queens is huge, my community was very small, and I hadn't seen a lot of the world yet. And working in restaurants helped open the doors to the rest of the world, and continue to do so every day until now. And so between the ingredients, the flavors, and the people, there's a lot to be inspired by.
Sure. Now, at what point, though, and again, I don't want to seem, cliche or using the wrong terminology. When did your palate or your interest in sharing, these flavors start trending towards, what one might consider, health-based as a first priority?
Yeah, in 2006, I published my first book, Now Eat This, and it was all about transforming comfort foods that you know and love into healthy versions of themselves. And it'd been what I was doing in my personal life, direct connection to my personal life. Out of the restaurant for 1 year, I discovered that, I had time to ride a bike, I had time to run, I had time to learn how to swim. I started to get into triathlons, and I realized I had to eat differently. And so I changed how I ate and got, cut dairy, gluten, sugar, alcohol. I've since learned how to eat some of those things again, but for a triathlete, nutrition is very important. And about a year into it, I started to complete the triathlons. You don't always finish them. So after a year of struggling with a very hard sport, I started to actually complete them. And it was a huge, it was like winning them to me, just to be able to cross the finish line. And a lot of it was thanks to nutrition. And I sort of thought to myself, I've cracked the code with these ingredients and this new way of cooking, the same big flavor combinations and ambitious ideas with cooking, but just healthier ingredients, better ingredients. And in 2006, no one was really talking about it in the chef world. Now every chef has a healthy cookbook out, but 2006 it was pretty novel. So the decline of my health in my personal life, and my excitement for a sport that just seemed impossible was what inspired me to get into healthy cooking and then talk about it in books. And I published 9 healthy cookbooks since.
Yeah, that sport is impossible, by the way.
Totally impossible. It's crazy, right? I don't know why anybody even starts it. The whole thing is so much fun. Between the gear and the people, it's super fun.
We'll be right back after this break.
What's the secret to my famous margarita pizza? Fresh basil, fresh mozzarella, and cento.
People ask my wife, what's the secret to your bolognese?
A little of this, a pinch of that, and cento. Grandma passed on 2 family secrets. Saute, don't fry,
and always cook with cento.
It's no secret that the best tasting dishes use cento, San Marzano tomatoes imported from Italy, with nothing added, just authentic flavor for authentic Italian cooking. Cento, trust your family with our family.
The Sons of Italy Foundation and Hardcore Italians are partnering for a fundraiser. Hardcore Italians is donating $5 for every St. Joseph's Day t-shirt sold to SIF. Funds will be used for the St. Joseph's Day altar exhibit at the Sons of Italy Museum on Staten Island. For more details, scan the QR code on the bottom right.
By the way, you look like you've been doing a few triathlons. What have you been doing? Because when I met you, you were in good shape, but not this level of good shape. You're like Ninja Warrior level right now.
Yeah, I'm working on it. You know, what else would
Clearly,
locked in my
clearly you're
basement?
working on it.
You're
You're not eating carbonara every night, I can tell you that.
No, though when I do, I enjoy it immensely.
Yeah.
You know, and you should be applauded for being at the forefront of these trends in cooking and making them not like diet, right, but like healthier eating patterns. And I really admire that, you know, with keto, and you introduced me to plant-based eating, you know, and I was stunned when we were meeting for our first dinner ever, and we were meeting at one of Matthew Kenny's, you know, plant-based restaurants. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
Rocco DiSpirito, and we're eating plants?
I know. You made fun of me at the time. I remember it well. Remember, I wanted to take you to 000 first for plant-based pizza, for vegan pizza. Yeah. I think you made fun of me heartily, and then it was closed, and we went to his Mexican place right next door, and you were blown away. I remember you being recognizably surprised by the food after the first bite.
I mean, it changed the way I eat, right? But look, I want to pivot back again.
Yeah, it's stuck, right?
Absolutely. You know, it wasn't like I had to do it 7 days a week, you know, 52 weeks a year. It was just, you know, something, a new wrinkle into my eating habits, which helped immensely. But let's go back in time. I'm going to pivot to a question from Mary here about your background in food, if you don't mind.
So thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you on our show.
My pleasure, Dr. Mary, right? Dr. Mary. Yes. Your last name disappeared on Zoom, so I don't know what it is.
You just Dr.
Just
Mary.
call me Mary.
I always
Dr.
use the
Mary.
doctor term for doctors because they work so hard to get where they are, and I have so much respect for anyone who's studied for that amount of years. So,
well, thank you very much. As a first-generation Italian-American with a love for food, what is one of your favorite memories growing up in an Italian kitchen?
So many. Wow. You know the feeling, right? You're first generation as well, I think, or second. I can't remember.
Second.
We were just talking about it earlier. First or second?
Second.
Okay, so you grew up with a nonna around, right?
Yes. Yes.
So the things I remember most are her yelling at us a lot, but the things that are my favorite memories are not her yelling at us or throwing the spoon at us, still hot with sauce on it. Is all the gardening and the home made foods. My grandmother bought very little from the supermarket. She made everything and grew everything. She literally had not just a cherry tree, but 2 kinds of cherry trees and 2 kinds of pear trees and blackberries and, 3 kinds of blackberries and, 4 kinds of lettuces and not just chickens, but chickens and pheasant and pigeon and quail. I mean, it was crazy. She didn't have a large area on Long Island. She had, what would be considered a modest home, but she did have a plot of land that she worked 24/7, 365 days a year. We had an area where we could sleep under the grapevines. I remember those naps so well. They were unbelievably satisfying. And I remember all the fresh foods so vividly. I remember her going and collecting ingredients for even just a frittata or just fried eggs. And, it would be a ristra of garlic that she made hanging in the garage, for the perfect humidity, and peppers that she had ripening on the floor in the garage on some wood, and eggs directly from the chicken coop. And she would gather all these things and bring me into the kitchen and sit me down and, take a bottle of olive oil a bottle that I recognized used to contain water or wine or something else, because a glass bottle is never thrown away. It was recycled endlessly. And I remember pouring, what seemed like a gallon of olive oil in a big pan and breaking 6 eggs in a pan and whole cloves of garlic. And I used to think, who's going to eat all this? And I would sit there and eat all of it, even at like 5 or 6 years old. So those are some of my favorite memories, sitting across the table from my grandmother, Anna Maria, eating her, like harvest and home cooked food on the spot. It was wonderful. She would never eat. It's very odd. She would just watch me eat And I think I understand what that feels like now. But as a cook, you tend to enjoy watching people eat the food you make more than eating it yourself. So that's definitely one of my most fond memories.
That's fantastic. I love that. How did that inspire you?
Murder and fresh food. It's a great combination.
It's garage to table.
Andrew with the puns, pun master Flash over there.
Hey, I need company, so I've been practicing.
How did that inspire your career?
So I think I've been training and trained for my career ever since I was born. I was surrounded by, you guys know it, if you're Italian and you're first or second generation, you know the setup, right? It's a lot of family members who all like fight to cook every night and are growing something or making something. They're either making their own wine or their own ham or baking their own bread or preserving tomatoes, on Labor Day weekend. It was a circus of food and cooks and activity all surrounded around food. And I also remember them giving food away a lot and receiving food a lot. And in Italy today, they still live like that. So I think I was inspired, and literally in training as far back as I can remember. My first memories are watching my mom and grandmother and aunts and uncles cooking. While I suffered from a little bit of the typical first generation ethnic self-loathing, I went to France first before Italy to learn. Actually, that's not true. I went to France after Italy, but I spent 2 years plus in France learning how to cook. And I sort of, denied my heritage for a long time. And then, of course, came back and realized that was the best thing about me, and embraced it. And I wrote this book, actually. This is all about my Italian-American heritage. It's my mom and me and her recipes. A lot like your grandmother book. This was about salvaging my mom's recipes before they were gone. So I think I've been training for being a chef for a long time. My family were hospitality workers, whether they realized it or not. Many of them did actually work in food. Like my mom was a lunch lady, at a local school in Queens. My uncle was a butcher. My other uncle was a tailor, but we don't talk about him enough, or too much. That background just puts you in a place where you're thinking about food a lot. So it was a natural fit for me. And it was also the only place you could get hired at 12 years old. The only industry that'll hire a 12-year-old is the restaurant industry, right? You're not going to get, an internship at Google at 12. So.
And you went straight from high school into cooking school, correct?
I was in cooking school in high school because I took the supplemental program. It was called BOCES. And I was working in restaurants all through high school. I never stopped working in the restaurant business from 12 on. And then, my brother looked at my credits and said, if you really want to go learn how to cook, you should go work in restaurants. So you should probably take some summer school courses and get out of high school. So I did that, and I graduated a year early just so I could go cook faster. And that worked out well. I got into the Culinary Institute a year later, and that's the school up in Hyde Park, New York, not New Hyde Park where my family lived. And that was, game changing, of course, for me. I was just turning 17 when I entered that school. And in 1984, the Culinary Institute of America was like one of two only places you could go to get, the full experience of what it's like to interact with chefs and cooks, and in an institution that was revered like this school is, and with the level of professionalism. And it was, just like, wow, who knew? I thought I knew a little bit from my 3 or 4 years of working in the restaurant business, but that was, sort of local pizzerias, and I hadn't really seen enough. I did sneak in before I went to cooking school, I did sneak in a summer and a semester in Israel, where I worked in a huge hotel in a place a lot like Southampton that was super eye-opening too. I remember my first night there, we had a wedding for 2,000 people. That was my entree to hotel workers, the hotel working industry. Pretty fun.
I need to hear that story one night over dinner.
It's a good story.
Before I pivot to Justin for some questions from the audience, I did reference, I did hear you mention sauce, right? And one of the requirements of the program, I think it's a good time to sort of pivot to it right now, is to ask our guests who are culinary background if their family called it sauce or gravy.
You're not asking me that, are you?
I am.
Really, are you trying to start trouble, or?
No, just a one-word answer will do, or you can elaborate if you so choose.
You know, families break up over this. This is
I've heard.
yeah. So if you're in Italy, they use the word salsa or ragu, and I don't know of an Italian equivalent to gravy. So just gonna throw that out there.
All right, we're gonna call that an answer. We're gonna move away.
I think gravy is an Italian-American idiom for sauce. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I don't know that's entirely accurate.
We'll be right back after this break.
What's the secret to my famous margarita pizza? Fresh basil, fresh mozzarella, and cento.
People ask my wife, what's the secret to your bolognese?
A little of this, a pinch of that, and cento. Grandma passed on 2 family secrets. Saute, don't fry,
And always cook with cento.
It's no secret that the best tasting dishes use cento, San Marzano tomatoes imported from Italy, with nothing added, just authentic flavor for authentic Italian cooking. Cento, trust your family with our family.
Watch the Italian America Show every Sunday night at 8 p.m. on News 12 Plus and celebrate the best of Italian American culture. Each week, we will feature an exclusive interview with a prominent Italian American from around the country. You can watch the Italian America Show on Optimum 61, Verizon 530, or stream live from anywhere on News12.plus. For more on Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America, please visit OSDIA.org. Please also follow us on social media.
A question that's come up multiple times, and I know I know we talked about it on the pre-show a little bit, and I've heard you talk about it on other interviews with some funny anecdotes along the way, but where is your family from in Italy? You mentioned your parents came over. Where did they come from?
They both came from the same village called San Nicolo Baronia, SANNICOLA BARONIA. It's a tiny hilltop village west of Avellino and or west of Salerno, sorry, and well, I guess all the hills are west of Salerno. But they always mention Avellino and Salerno for some reason, I guess because they're close. And one of my uncles worked in Salerno. And they lived next door to each other their entire lives. And then, of course, when they got married, they lived next door to each other. And that's where they and almost my entire immediate family comes from. It's a small group of people. DNA is, very limited. So we're doing okay, though. We're okay. But there are literally 4 last names. That's
the
it.
bloodline has survived. There you go. Do you have a favorite dish from Campania? And I'll kind of preface that.
So many, yeah.
I know it's a hard question, and I'll preface this with: do you have a favorite pasta shape, and then a pairing for that particular pasta shape?
We were talking about my favorite pasta earlier. So my favorite pasta is spaghetti aglio olio. It's literally what my mom made as the go-to comfort food. We were talking about whether you put Parmesan or Reggiano on top, and I'd say no, and my mom would say no, and most Italian chefs would say no. But of course, if you want to, it's no big deal. But my favorite cut, and I think it's from Campania, but I'm not sure, is paccheri. They make a famous dish with paccheri there, and it's just basically meat and onion sauce, and I love that dish a lot. Maybe Andrew knows the exact origin, but paccheri is like sort of it looks like calamari bodies. It looks like
a large rigatoni almost.
a very large rigatoni. Yeah, it's got a very toothsome. It's Paccheri, and it's delicious, and you can cook it for days, and it never overcooks.
You know what? That's actually in my top 3 favorite shapes as well. And a fun
Is
fact
it?
about
Okay, cool.
pacchero is in Neapolitan means to slap. So that's where the name comes
Oh, there you
from.
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice tidbit there. I like
Very
that.
little fun fact. I got
Yeah.
You know, even a
That's fantastic,
broken
actually.
clock is right twice a day. I have a few up my sleeve. So
And I really thank you so much for your time here tonight. I need to go back to Justin to make sure we're not going to get in trouble if we don't ask any more questions.
no, you know, I
No,
think,
any questions are fine.
I think at this point we'd be here another hour if we wanted to go through them. So
I think we need
there you go. There you go.
Well, first of all, I want to congratulate you on your book.
Okay.
And Dr. Mary also has a new book, right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it right behind you, Andrew?
Mine is, so is Mary's.
Yeah, cool. Congratulations. I know what it takes to write a beautiful book, and you guys obviously it's a tough time to put out a book. So congrats and good luck, and hopefully they sell well. Next for me is another book that I started working on. There may be some interesting projects like a restaurant in my future. I wouldn't say that the pandemic has created opportunities, but there's certainly a shift that occurred that resulted in some opportunities that were unexpected. So hopefully I'll be able to take advantage of some of those.
And then we definitely have you back on us in order to share that.
Yes.
When it's safe to share.
Or
And then, of
maybe
course,
maybe a field trip at some point.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yes.
And Rocco, before we move on, where can everyone find your book or your
Amazon,
Okay.
wherever books are sold.
Okay, fantastic.
Awesome. Well, thank you so very, very much, Rocco. We appreciate your time.
Really my pleasure. Thank you guys.
The audience of the OSDIA was thrilled to have you on. I'm sure they're all wildly familiar with who you are, and getting to know you better, I think, is something that I've enjoyed over the last year, and I'm really glad that they've had the experience as well. So thank you all for joining us tonight. Be sure to tune in next week, and we will be in touch again.
For more related topics in this series, please visit our YouTube channel, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. For more information on Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America and how to join, please visit osdia.org. Please also follow us on social media. The Italian America Show is sponsored by Full Sponsorship, Cento Fine Foods. Trust your family with our family. The Bianchi Law Group. Dr. K, the Management Professor. The authors of the #1 international best-selling cookbook, Don't Cut the Basil. Dr. Mark D'Annunzio, National 4th Vice President, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. The Grand Lodge of New York. The Grand Lodge of Ohio. The Grand Lodge of Virginia. The Grand Lodge of Maryland. The Grand Lodge of the Northwest, representing Oregon and Washington. Long Shot Productions, get back in the game. ACMT, Excellence in Aerospace Manufacturing. Purchase the new book, The Palm Beach PI, by Italian-American private investigator Frank Ciato, available now where books are sold.